strange to me and wild.
My name's Roger Willis. I'm married to a local girl. My connection with Amiens has been 19 years since we moved here and bought a block of land. And it was a voyage of discovery to learn that we were in an historic precinct. We knew there was an experimental farm or a training farm. It was a place where soldiers had to work for 3 months to learn how to be farmers before they took up their lot of land. And we knew the farm was somewhere nearby, but anyone we talked to had waved their arms in a vague way towards that's where it was over there, I think. And so we were a bit confused about actually nailing it down. I got interested enough to go to the State Archives, and quite by accident I stumbled across a panoramic shot of the training farm at Pikedale Soldier Settlement. And you could see the fruit trees in rows and tomatoes growing between them and the bush in the background. And of course, being Amiens on the granite belt, there was lots of granite rocks, and granite rocks are all got their own personality, and one of them stuck out as being a very unusual rock because it had like a beak structure sticking out to one side. And I thought that looked familiar, but I couldn't actually place it. The next day, I was wandering around our block of land, and lo and behold, there was the rock. So I knew exactly where the state farm was, and quite particularly the orchard associated with the state farm, and we owned it. So that was like a light bulb moment of discovery that ignited my interest in things to do with history of our district. The rail line was built from Cottonvale out to the settlement to transport apples back to market. It was never meant to carry passengers, just freight. And they had these rail sidings to pick up apples at various locations, and of course the railhead at the end of the line had no name, so they had suggestions as to what these places might be called, and the practice in Queensland at the time was to use Aboriginal names. Another suggestion was to call them after Victoria Cross winners. And then someone suggested major battles that the Australians were involved in. And that got legs, and we have the names Fleury and Pozières, Bullecourt, Passchendaele, Bapaume, Messines. So those names were agreed upon, and Amiens had a number of suggestions. One was Diggerville, which mercifully didn't happen. Another was Romani, and that was abandoned because it was like Roma. Eventually Amiens was chosen, and remarkably they pretty much follow the chronological sequence of battles that the Australians fought in going along the line. Amiens was created as a model village that was the headquarters of the Pikedale Soldier Settlement. It was carefully planned. It had an administrative area and the school, the training farm. It had a residential area, and it had an industrial area where the head of the rail terminus was. So it was quite a place. It probably had about 500 people living in the village or nearby. The soldiers, of course, never really lived there. They lived in the surrounding countryside where they had small farms. The hotspot for the farming was around Amiens in the Pikedale and Marsh parishes, but they were down in Ballindine, and they were down as far as the New South Wales border and out as far as Texas. So Amiens was important as the administrative centre. There was a suggestion that the rail line be extended to the arsenic mine that was nearby, because in that era things like arsenic were used to keep the bugs off the fruit. Pine trees were planted and sawmills were set up to make packing cases, so someone had thought through a business plan.
When the jam factory and sauce factory was accused of colouring their tomato sauce and tomato soup, there was a delegation from here went down to Brisbane to the exhibition, and they handed out their soup and their sauce, and it was guaranteed not coloured, and it was so much better accepted, more tasty than the IXL. And one lady went to McDonald East to shop, And when she asked for her stuff to be railed back to Stanthorpe, they refused to serve her. But it didn't stop them having the best sauce and the best soup.
What seemed to go wrong was that the price of apples dropped for whatever reason, and the Great Depression hit. And farming life was a bit tougher than people in the city perhaps imagined. Perhaps the blocks were too small to be viable, but in any case, some farmers failed as farmers, but others succeeded, and their descendants are still working farms in the district.
We'd pass the golden orchards and we'd whistle through the pines. There used to be 6 sidings, but now they've closed the line.
The legacy is that the Pozieres region grows 14% of the Australian apple crop, which is quite remarkable, I think, given that we live in Queensland and you think of Tasmania when it comes to apples or somewhere else. So we really are a pioneering group of people, and certainly the people that came here to Amiens were pioneers, and there are lots of names of battlefields in various locations of Australia and in fact the world, but the particular cluster of names we have that have persisted in this district is unique in Australia.
25 chains through orchards, scrub and pines, riding on the fruit train on the Amiens branch line. For 12 miles and 25 chains through orchards, scrub and branch line.